Hello and welcome back to the East Lake Pet Talk podcast. I'm veterinarian Dr. Karen Fling, and I'm joined here today with my co-host.
Hello, I'm Dr. Will McCauley, and welcome to the first podcast after the Thanksgiving break, our fourth podcast. I'm hoping everybody got a good helping of turkey and dressing, kept it away from the pets.
Well, not everybody did. I know at our place we're still seeing some pets coming in with gastrointestinal upsets, vomiting, other trouble, and even some pancreatitis, unfortunately. So I know we always want to share those good treats with our pets as well, but it's always best to keep the diet pretty bland. And honestly, I think most dogs do better with a regular diet versus all that variety that we like as humans. What do you think?
In my experience, absolutely. You know, people a lot of times will take it to such an extent that they'll change up the dog food that they buy. You know, once a month they'll just buy a different kind of bag. And really, you're right. A lot of times that will upset their stomach, give them this kind of GI upset. Maybe not to the degree of pancreatitis like we see when we feed them human food, but definitely can cause a lot of upset. And so it's best to pick a good, high-quality diet and stick with it unless you and your vet make the decision to change it for health reasons.
Yeah, ask your pet's veterinarian if you're not sure what the best food is for your dog or cat, because certainly I know Dr. McCauley and I view food as really the first medicine. So involve your pet's veterinarian. They're happy to talk with you about these choices and can really guide you based on your pet's life stage. So super important.
Definitely.
And you're talking about food, and you talked about the transition with different diets. I know some people are aware that it's best to do a change sometimes over a few days when you get a new food for a pet. But I went to a lecture recently that I really found interesting, and it was about cats and nutrition and about how you should go about changing a cat's diet. And this particular speaker, actually a veterinary internist, recommended that we not expect our cats to change overnight. And if they're sick or ill, that you might even want to wait until they're feeling a little bit better to transition to a long-term maintenance diet for a certain health need. And in fact, this doctor recommended that you transition a cat between 4 and 6 weeks of time with a new diet, especially if they're kind of finicky and they just like a certain brand.
I can see that. Very long titration period. The process of switching over is called titration, where we add smaller amounts of the new food in with the larger amounts of the old food until we had that gradual switch.
Wean off the other food.
Way better doing it that way for sure. I didn't know it took as long as 4 to 6 weeks. That's good
for
to know.
some cats. And so I think very commonly cat families say, you know, gosh, my cat didn't like the food, he or she wouldn't eat it, and then that's the end of it. So I think if you can do that gradual titration and be patient, it's going to go a lot better for those kitties. And I always say if somebody gave me a bowl of ice cream and a bowl of broccoli, I know which one I would pick. But in time, you know, gradually we can get accustomed to new tastes and flavors, and our cats and dogs are that way too.
Good, just like our kitties.
Yeah, well, so we've had kind of an interesting week here in Dallas, and I've kind of lost track of how many earthquakes we've had. It's been incredible. Roderick, do you know how many earthquakes we've had? I'm talking to our cameraman. He's up on everything. I think it's like 6 or 7, right?
Wow.
Last week and a half. And so this is a little bit unusual for us here in the heart of Dallas, Texas. And I actually felt the first one. The others I have not felt. They've happened either a little more remotely or at odd times where I missed them. But we could literally see a mirror in the hallway shaking and glasses clanking in the kitchen cabinets. And
it's unsettling for us Texans. We don't experience a lot of earthquakes down here.
No, unsettling for sure. And so this is all kind of interesting that this has happened now, because as you know, I just returned a few weeks ago from California, where I went for a CAPC meeting, and I actually went on a tour there of the San Andreas Fault area. And so I've kind of got earthquakes on my mind. And the speaker who did this tour really proposed the question about whether animals could predict earthquakes. And so we know that apparently some dogs and horses can predict earthquakes. But if any of our listeners out there or watchers have actually experienced earthquakes and had an experience with pets that you felt like really kind of clued them in that the earthquake was coming, I think that'd be an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah, send us your stories to the website or our email at podcast@welovepets.net. Of course, I always recommend you subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you, especially if you're a dog or cat or salamander or whatever pet you have. Kind of predicted an earthquake to happen. I think
Absolutely.
I think you mentioned even a goldfish that you heard about.
Yes, and I'll see if Roderick can run the clip here, but this was our guide on this particular trip.
The earthquake people will tell you that they can't predict them. They can maybe at best give you a 10-second warning. I know the emergency room people are hoping for 10-second warnings, but they say they really can't, but they are starting to believe that animals
some dogs really are.
And horses.
Yeah, my dog could care less, but our neighbor's dog predicts them.
And I had a goldfish. I have a first-hand experience with a goldfish. We were living on the coast some years ago, and my daughter was getting ready for school, and the fish started swimming clockwise, counterclockwise. He was going crazy. He was jumping up in the air, and he was really agitated, and then boom, the earthquake hit. So we said, well, I'll be darned. That's what it is.
Quite the video.
Yes, quite the video there. So anyway, we would love to hear from you if you have a dog or a cat or a goldfish or salamander, whatever it is that predicts earthquakes. Kind of a fun topic, and who knows why we're having all of these here locally.
I've heard all kinds of stories.
Lots of debate on that.
Yeah, I'll leave that to the geologist.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, in that we're not. We are veterinarians here in Dallas, Texas, and we see a little bit of everything. And I always say that no week is ever boring. We don't know if we're going to be a pet pediatrician or a grief counselor or a bird doctor. And in fact, this week we saw kind of an interesting case. And this was a golden pheasant or a Chinese pheasant. And we'll see if Roderick can post that picture here. And this beautiful bird was one that came into us as a stray. And obviously this is not a bird local to our area. And it turns out that this bird is truly native in China and the western mountainous regions and kind of the forested conifer forest. And as bright as this bird is and beautifully colored as it is, these birds are so seldomly seen in the wild. They're really quite camouflaged in the dense foliage. And so this was pretty cool for us to actually see this bird. And we work with a group of wildlife rehabbers at Rogers Wildlife close by here to Dallas, actually in Hutchins, Texas. And they believe that this bird probably was one as either a pet or one being raised for feathers. So just the feathers are amazing with this thing. And these birds, even though they have gorgeous feathers, they're typically more ground dwellers, and they prefer to run versus fly. And so that's kind of interesting. But when they do need to fly, apparently they can really burst up and shoot up into the top of trees and get away.
Just like the pheasants we see here.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, not unlike a traditional pheasant, which those are just beautiful too.
Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned they are, even though they're brightly colored, they can hide so well. It's a lot like the pattern and striations we see in tigers. We see these bright orange kind of opposed to these dark black stripes, and that helps a lot with the shade. The kind of the shady canopy forest when you see kind of contrasting sunlight and shadows. They have to blend in, and obviously it worked for this pheasant as well.
Right. Well, miracles of nature, certainly.
Yeah. Yep.
So, in any case, that was a lot of fun to see that guy. But I think here in Dallas, I am amazed that we have so much wildlife besides, pheasants and Chinese pheasants and these sorts of things that are a little more exotic. There was a story here recently that Roderick shared with us about an owl that had gotten a little dog. And so I know we see coyotes here, we see barred owls, we see great horned owls, and it is a reminder that even though we're in the city, we do need to be aware of wildlife in our areas and protect our pets. Have you seen some of these stories happen locally here as well?
I have. Unfortunately, you see them more and more often these days as humans kind of encroach upon natural territories. Hawks, falcons, owls, all kinds of birds of prey like that. They're called raptors. they have, we're encroaching on their territory, and these birds hunt small mammals, mice, rabbits, snakes, stuff like that. So you can imagine from 300 feet up, a chihuahua or a very small Lhasa Apso may look a lot like a prey to them.
Or a cat too.
Or
and
a cat for sure.
One of the big reasons not to let your cats go outside. And I know I've talked about John, one of our family cats that we always say is an alley cat. He's a sneaker. He's an indoor cat, but he will look for every opportunity to bolt out and run outside when we least expect it. And so that's one of the reasons I'm really excited to try this new product we talked about from Invisible Fence. That's kind of a barrier protection where even if you don't need your whole yard wired up, you can address doorways and specific openings that escapes are likely to happen from. So we had just gotten through hearing about that product that Invisible Fence has when we did our Fun in the Sun with Fido event that Invisible Fence came to. And so we pull into the driveway, and we're getting out of the car, and we literally hear an owl hooting, like right overhead in a tree. And so this was my son and I, and so we panicked, and it's like, oh my gosh, where's John? He hasn't snuck out yet, has he? And so we ran in the house and made sure he was safe. He was okay as we were coming in and out of the house. And we started really studying and watching this owl. And so my son runs inside and he gets this rubber rat and he ties this upholstery string to it. And he's kind of a wildlife nut anyway. But he said, what do these birds eat? They eat rats and rodents largely. And so he goes and gets this Halloween rubber rat that squeaks and ties a string to it. And we called it going owl fishing. So he drags this thing around. And Roderick, I don't know if you can show a clip of this here, but it was so much fun to watch this bird. I mean, just a massive creature. And to see him in broad daylight, and this was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, and I think I had thought that most of these birds of prey were hunting in the deep night and that sort of thing, but not necessarily so.
It reminds us, you have to watch your pets all the time because these predators will hunt whenever the prey is active, and whether that happens to be midnight or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they will go out. So always keep an eye on your pets, especially your small pets when they're out.
Oh, absolutely. And I was actually in fear for my son because at one point here, he's right beside a bush and the owl is, I don't know, 3 feet away from him. And so I wasn't sure whether the owl was going to try to go for him or what. But I think normally it's the smaller prey they're going for. But really a remarkable experience to see this up so close
to get
and
video
personal.
Of it for sure. That's very cool.
Yeah, very cool. So we're in the big city, but wildlife is all around us. And again, you never can tell what we're going to see. So
I'm glad you mentioned that. That kind of leads us into our next topic that I kind of wanted to talk about, which is a disease that we're seeing, kind of all over, but for sure in Texas, and that is Lyme disease.
Indeed.
So, just kind of want to talk about what it is, how it's transmitted, and how to protect yourself as well as your dogs and cats.
Right, and this is a tick-vectored disease.
It is. It's actually a zoonotic bacterial disease. Zoonotic means it can pass from animals to humans. It's caused by a bacterium called Borrelia burgdorferi. I'm trying saying that 3 times fast. Which is a spiral-shaped bacteria. It's transmitted by a type of tick that's commonly found in deer, which we have plenty of in Texas, but deer can't actually catch the disease. It is transmitted, or the host, the reservoir is rodents. I'd have to look and see exactly what kind of rodents, but you can imagine as many deer as we have, if there are any wood mice or field mice or anything like that, the tick may take a bite off of a mouse onto a deer, kind of back and forth, and then may actually get onto you or your pet. And so we want to kind of go over that.
Right. And how do people know to worry about this? What would be some of the inclinations that Lyme disease needs to be on your radar?
Yeah. So if you live in Texas, definitely has to be. It is endemic in certain areas. It was first identified in the 1950s up in Connecticut. That's actually where it gets its name from. It's spelled Lyme, not Lime, so it's actually named after Lyme, Connecticut, where it was first discovered. And the cardinal sign, or the sign that we see most often, is this bullseye-shaped rash. So a little dot in the middle, and then this kind of expanding ring-shaped rash that goes out from the bite area. That's where the tick first bites, the bacteria enters the host, and then it kind of expands out and causes this rash.
And then, of course, with pets, with their dense fur coat, sometimes
Very
these
hard to
bites
see.
happen and you may not see them. But
Yep.
if you're lucky enough to see them, and in fact, you have a worry about a family pet right now, don't you?
I do. I went home for Thanksgiving and was petting my parents' dog, who we actually adopted from Elpo from the East Lake Pet Orphanage.
Yay, very good.
And he had a little spot kind of raised on his belly, and it looked suspicious. And so I'm actually having my mom bring him up so we can test him for Lyme disease, because
Good.
it is a treatable disease. I want to make sure everyone's aware of that. We can treat it with specific antibiotics, usually doxycycline or amoxicillin. But the thing is, you have to get tested first to know if you actually have the disease, and then prompt treatment really affects how the disease is going to progress. In chronic infection, in both animals and humans, you can have neurological disturbances, you can have arthritis like joint inflammation, skin diseases, and actually in humans they've had certain kinds of psychological disorders that have been kind of attributed, if not directly caused by, attributed to Lyme disease.
Right, and that's such a wide range of symptoms, and sometimes the blood parasites like Lyme disease have been referred to as the great imitators because the symptoms can be so widely varied. It's not one specific sign that lets you know you have it. And,
Exactly.
And a lot of pets and people have arthritis, and how do you know when it's Lyme disease? So by all means, see your pet's doctor and have the testing done, and definitely communicate that history. If there's any chance of tick exposure, or if you've even been in a region where people report a lot of tick problems, that's where you want to involve your family veterinarian, because again, early detection is so valuable, and it can change the whole course of the disease process.
Completely, from a very treatable to a very chronic, long-acting kind of smoldering disease. And the best thing, we always say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so the best way to prevent this is tick control. So for both you and your dog or your cat. So the topical tick medications that help to control fleas and ticks, that's their first line of defense.
And then there's the new medication that is a one chewy once every 3 months. So if you don't like the topicals, there are oral options. So all sorts of great choices right now relative to tick control. And there are actually even some collars that work very well and are super effective relative to ticks. So again, bring your family veterinarian into that circle of conversation and prevent the tick issues before they become a problem. And don't forget your cats. A lot of people think cats don't get ticks, but they do. And I know Tracy that works with our office remotely. She actually lives in Arkansas and kind of does work with us remotely, as we can now do with the world of computers. She says that she is just battling tick issues there in Arkansas with her cats. Wow. And so we've worked on a plan to get her protected and safe with her cats, and to protect her family too, because again, this is a zoonotic disease that can go from pets to people. And I think a lot of people, when we talk about prevention is good, they don't realize that it potentially is not only protecting their pet's health, but it also saves money, because the estimates are that you save anywhere from 2 to 9 times as much money if you prevent a disease versus treating it once it gets started or once it becomes more severe. So by all means, prevent.
Not only better for your pet's health, but better for your wallet as well to prevent.
Exactly.
If you do see a tick on your pet, the best thing to do is to carefully remove it. That also helps to prevent the transmission of the disease, because it can take 24 to 36 hours for Lyme disease, for the bacteria to actually be transmitted from the gut of the tick to your pet.
Right. So the longer that tick stays attached, the more likely you are to contract the disease.
Definitely.
Is that right?
Absolutely. Yep. So the best way to do it, you can either have your veterinarian do it, especially if there's a lot of ticks. We can use separate sprays. But if you want to take it off yourself, it's best to get a pair of tweezers and grab right down near the tick's head, so right at the skin level. Don't grab the body, because that can actually squeeze the gut contents into your pet.
That's disgusting.
That's very nasty. I know. Exactly. Sorry to be so nasty on this, but that's the truth of it.
And we see a lot of gross stuff, but I tell you what, ticks still really just gross me
They're
out.
just nasty animals.
They are. They are. So yeah, don't want to go squeezing any gut contents.
No, exactly. Well,
Now, have you ever used one of the tick removers, one of the little tools
I
for
have.
tick remover?
I have.
How did that go for you?
They have all kinds of designs for them. So I've tried two. One looks like a little fork that actually kind of gets down and scoops up and pulls the tick out.
The little monster.
The other one was a high-tech one almost. It had a little clamp that went on it, and you pushed a button, and a little static electric charge electrocuted the tick, which sounded cool. I don't know exactly how well it worked, but it was fun to kind of, see it spark there when it wasn't on.
Oh, my goodness.
So,
well, I've not used either of those tools. I've seen the little fork type thing, but didn't know about the tick electrocutor.
Yeah, exactly. It may be more for show than for results, but
Or for tick torture.
as long as the tick comes off,
That's right.
that's the important thing. And we always recommend that you contact your vet for any advice on ticks or other
Right. And I
issues.
also like to recommend that people wear gloves when they're removing these ticks too. Throw a pair of exam gloves on rather than doing it barehanded, because even for us, some of these tick-borne diseases can be contracted just with little subtle breaks in the skin or little damaged cuticle area, and you just want to make sure that you're safe and protected.
Yeah, because Lyme disease is not the only disease these ticks carry. There's all kinds of other infectious diseases, and so we want to make sure to protect yourself first, and then take care of your pet. We don't want to spread any diseases between you and your pets.
Definitely don't.
Yep.
And so all kinds of creepy crawlers that pets get, and again, using a preventative product that addresses not only the ticks, but fleas and heartworm, and making sure all those things are away from your pets and your pets as safe as possible.
Extremely important. If you have any questions, you can ask your vet, or you can always email us at podcast@welovepets.net. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to get this information every week.
Very good.
Yeah.
So what else is new?
Oh, have fun pet news. So you know how I love to have fun animal stories in the news. This one goes out to people who have ever had trouble traveling on Thanksgiving. At least you were not this U.S. Airways flight. A U.S. Airways crew that was leaving Connecticut's Bradley Airport actually had to kick a pig off of the flight. Someone brought a pig as an emotional support animal onto the flight. The pig was around 70 pounds and incontinent, and so it started running back and forth as its owner tried to control its behavior and clean up after the animal. It was eventually declined travel arrangements by the flight crew, and the pig and the owner did have to leave.
Wow, too bad. That was probably not good for anybody's emotions.
Definitely not.
That
would stress me out for sure.
Yeah. Pigs, I always say, are very bright, but you know what? When they get upset, they're almost like a small child. So, and for anybody who doesn't know, speaking of meaning business, if I haven't shared this story already, I give Dr. McCauley the credit for saving my life. I had a cranky pig one day that I was taking care of that tried to attack me, and I have about a 5-inch scar on my right calf. I was going to say thigh. No, it was my calf. But there was Dr. McCauley out of nowhere, jumps in there, saves me, and it was incredible. So
I like working on pigs. Pigs are a great patient to deal with, but they can be dangerous if they're not in the mood for it. So
yes, well, and this poor pig was not in the mood for anything. So
good pig otherwise.
Continued gratitude to you for that.
Well, happy to be there. Happy I could help.
Well, talking about the emotional support pets, I think I may have mentioned to you the Blog Pause conference that I went to recently. I was blown away by how many emotional support pets were there. And I, honestly, where I knew people had relied on pets for emotional support, I didn't really realize that you could have that sort of label given to a pet if you had a medical condition that required that you have your pet close by your side. And so a lot of these people that were bloggers were there at this conference, and of course, obviously a very pet-connected group, but some of these people traveled with their pets as emotional support pets, and maybe that's how they got into blogging with their pets and that sort of thing. So there were big critters that traveled with these people inside the cabin with them. So anyway, that was pretty interesting to learn about that. But as I joked with my daughter, who also went with me, we said that there were times when the pets weren't there, like cocktail parties and things like that. So anyway, I'm not quite sure how it works when you need an emotional support pet and when you don't. I thought they had to kind of be with you all the time, but maybe not at cocktail parties.
Maybe not at cocktail parties. There's other ways to get over your emotional hang-ups, I guess, at the cocktail parties. No, it's good that some of those animals are there to help people with true
Indeed.
emotional issues.
Indeed.
Another cool thing that I found is actually a study that was done by the School of Psychology at the University of Sussex that talked about the way that dogs are trying to understand human language when they talk. We always, see dogs kind of turn their head this way or this way when they're listening to us, and they say it kind of reflects the fact that our brains, the different sides of the brain, work in different ways. And they say that even dogs show that when they're listening to people. If they're listening to their owner versus someone else, and they're trying to figure out either an emotional response or a logical response, they'll actually turn their head,
Interesting.
to get it with the left ear so it's processed by the right side of the brain, or the right ear so it's processed by the left side of the brain.
Well, and that's like they say that you can tell whether people are telling the truth or not versus, in terms of how they look up to the left and down to the right. I can't remember all of that. But so pets do that too.
Pets do the same thing. Yeah, very cool to
But
know.
I don't think pets ever lie.
I don't know. I think they will try to hide guilt sometimes. I know when mine gets into the trash or tears up a pillow or something, he will feel guilty, and he'll.
Well, one of mine actually feels guilty for the other one that causes the trouble.
Oh,
if
wow.
I walk in
Secondhand
and something
guilt.
secondhand guilt and like, oh, I know you're going to be disappointed, and so he'll hang his head down low and look very sad, and it turns out it's the other one doing the bad stuff.
My sister has a dog that will tattle on the other dogs, so I guess
How do you tattle?
when the other one's doing bad, her dog will come in and bark at them, be like, hey, guess what Portia's doing? Guess what she's doing? You kind of bring her in there.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, then that gets into the whole debate, the theological debate as to whether pets go to heaven. And I think I heard one person say that they don't go to heaven because they don't have a conscience. And I disagree with that. I think
if they act guilty, I think they have a conscience.
Yeah, I think so too. So anyway, definitely around my house they do.
Yeah, they definitely stress out, and I can see that one of the best ways to get over that is actually with pet massage, which a new report says is gaining popularity in the U.S. A lot more people are following up with dog massage. Actual certified pet massage therapists are available to give massage, not only for dogs but for cats as well.
Right, and we've been working with a licensed pet massage therapist for years now, and we completely believe in it. And it can be something good for reducing stress, but also relative to medical issues. We find that it's super helpful. There was one patient that had a neck injury where he had panicked and in the midst of a thunderstorm anxiety situation and got his head and neck caught in like a gate type area, and this massage therapist just did wonders with this dog in terms of getting neurologic function back and relieving pain and really helping this dog to do better, and but just all sorts of issues. But,
Absolutely. Well, I mean, dog and cat physiology is not that different from human physiology, and so you can imagine if you had a sore muscle or a neck, the neck muscle that was sore, massaging for you would make it feel good. Pets are the same way, and this report shows that there are actually groups that go to people's homes, people's work places of work to do these massages, and they said that they have demonstrable improvement in their
I believe it.
In their quality of life.
Yeah. What pet doesn't like that?
I know, right? Every pet loves to be petted.
Yes,
it's
indeed.
in the name. Yep.
A little more science behind the petting, though.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Okay. Well, we'd love to hear whatever is on your mind. And we're here at the Pet Talk podcast. And you can subscribe by the link here and let us know what you're interested in as well. And we'd love to cover the topics that you're most interested in so that we make sure that we're providing worthwhile and valuable content to you. And we are educators as veterinarians, and a big part of what we do is teach every day. And so it's all about your experience and how we can help you to learn to be better pet families and have a more bonded, committed relationship with your pet. And so we're here every week, and we'd welcome you to join us. And next week, we're actually going to be having a visitor on, Miss Jeannie Champion, and she is a really neat individual. She has a background working in major motion picture food. So she does the food side of that and feeds all the stars. And she also has actually done the catering for Wine on the Roof, which is an East Lake Pet Orphanage event here in Dallas.
Yeah,
fun event and great food. And so she's actually embarking on a new project that is a Cooking with Kids show. And so she should be coming in here this next week where she will present a homemade dog biscuit recipe that will be easy to make, great holiday gift item. And so that'll be really fun to see her on the show.
Give that a try, taste that myself.
Yeah, absolutely. She says the ingredients are so good and so healthy that they're going to be good for people and pets. So.
I've had some of those high quality, kind of gourmet dog cupcake biscuit things, and they're great.
Absolutely. Well, that's the kind of thing Jeannie's all over, and involving children in the cooking process I think is so great because it's such a neat bonding time to have with your kids or grandchildren to bring them into the cooking process. And of course, as we say for pets, food is the first medicine, and so we want to make sure that the treats that our pets eat are the healthiest possible. And so that'll be a fun visit to have her here.
Yep.
But as we're thinking about treats for the holiday, I thought I would share a few things that I think are the top 5 things to give your pet for the holidays.
All right.
And number 5 on my list, speaking of good health, is to take your pet on a walk. It's good for you and it's good for your pet. So get out and exercise.
Stay active.
Stay active. And especially as our pets get a little more arthritic and stiff, getting out on those walks really does help. And we'll talk a little bit more probably next week about arthritis and different things you can do to manage that problem. Number 4 on my list is get your pet a toothbrush. Dental health is so important for pets, and we see that 75 to 85% of pets after the age of 3 have some form of oral disease, whether it be periodontal disease, broken teeth, infection in the mouth.
Personal anecdote, we actually at East Lake, I performed a dental cleaning on my aunt's dog, who is a 13-year-old Yorkie who had just horrible dental disease, and she had put it off and put it off and put it off for years. And 2 days afterwards, he was running around the house like a new dog. It's just amazing how they
there's so many hidden problems there. And were there infected teeth
or
abscess teeth?
There were.
Yes.
Yep, so.
Yeah, and our dogs, and cats, they cover up their signs of illness and they hide when they're not feeling well. And I think with dental disease, it can be such a slow, insidious process where it gets worse over time, and our poor pets really suffer through that and just deal with it. And dental disease is painful, and so it's so important to address. So it's going to be neat to see how much better your aunt's dog does. And the infection from in the mouth from abscessed teeth can really cause other problems in the way of kidney disease, liver disease, other internal problems, heart valve problems. So
that was our big worry, because he also has some degree of kidney disease, we know from blood work tests. So it was really important that we clean those teeth up to maintain the kidney function that he has left.
Yes, indeed. So important. And then number 3 on my list is the gift of time. We're always so busy around the holidays. I encourage you to take some time to just carve out a little bit extra each day to pet your pet, spend time, go on a walk, cuddle up. It's going to be good for your pet, and it's going to be great for you, because when we do that, it drops our blood pressure, it relieves stress, and there are just so many ways that these wonderful pets in our lives really do help us out. So it's almost more of a gift to us versus them.
Yeah, well, and it avoids a lot of behavioral issues on the pet's part too. If they're actually exercising with you, interacting with you, we see a lot more well-tuned pets.
Absolutely. Happier pets, happier people.
Yes.
Number 2 on my list is a healthy diet. And again, food should be the first medicine. So definitely stay away from the unhealthy treats. Feed a good regular diet. And like we said, don't be switching and swapping all the time for variety. It can be hard on the pet's digestive system. And then finally, number 1 on my list is an annual checkup.
Best gift right there.
Yeah, best gift. And as life is so busy, it's easy to forget about that annual checkup. And a study that was put out here fairly recently in a message from Partners for Healthy Pets reveals that nearly 20% of dogs and over 30% of cats are not seeing the family veterinarian as compared to 5 years ago. And that's a pretty incredible statistic.
Yeah, not one that we like to hear, but we like to be the voice of change and get everybody to get those pets in to see your vet at least once a year. We said in the first show that pets do age faster than people, so you can imagine if you skip a year or two, taking your cat to the vet, that can equal 10, 15 years maybe of you not going to the doctor.
Right, and a lot of changes can happen in that period of time, and I think people just get busy or lose track of schedules relative to this sort of thing. Life is busy, so if you're not even sure, I know just about any veterinarian doesn't mind a call to say, hey, when was my last annual? When am I due to come in? Call the receptionist, get that information. And if you really haven't done that appointment within the last year, go ahead and set that up and make it happen. Because as veterinarians, we really are trained to look for hidden problems. And by preventing disease, we can save cost and save anywhere from 2 to 9 times as much expense by being proactive. And as veterinarians, we are trained to find hidden signs of disease, just like you did with your aunt's Yorkie.
That's right.
Was she letting anybody know there was trouble, or did she kind of cover it up?
Kind of covered it up for years. It just seemed that it was just an aging thing, and that her pet was slowing down. And an exam showed that there were horrible teeth, and once we cleaned them up, feeling great.
That's great. Good news. So call your pet's doctor today if you haven't seen them recently. And as always, if there are questions about your pet's health, definitely feel free to look us up. And how should they contact us, Dr. McCauley?
Shoot us an email at podcast@welovepets.net. Be sure to subscribe to the Pet Talk podcast on YouTube so we can see you every week. And we hope to see you next week for those fun, delicious dog treats. My mouth's already watering.
Sounds good. We'll see you next week. Thanks so much.
Bye.
And if we gesture right here, he can do like a video or anything in a box up here.
Oh, cool.
So, well, I guess if we gesture there, we can kind of lean back even.
If I turn this way, I think it clears it out pretty good. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that works well. And then we can use our swivel.
Oh, yeah. Dun, 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 dun.